The sun had barely risen, casting a golden haze over the sleepy streets of Willow Creek, when Nathan Cole and his 10-year-old daughter, Marin, set out for their morning walk. Nathan's life had been a quiet rhythm since his wife passed 3 years ago, a careful balance between work, school, and keeping Marin's laughter alive in the small apartment they called home. That morning, however, would break the pattern of their lives forever. As they rounded the corner near the old train tracks, Marin's sharp eyes caught a figure slumped against the cold, dew-covered ground. Nathan froze, heart hammering. A man, barely conscious, lay there in tattered clothes, his face pale and streaked with blood. Without thinking, Nathan knelt beside him, feeling the faint warmth of life still lingering in his trembling hands. Marin's small hand gripped his sleeve tightly, her wide eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and curiosity. In that instant, Nathan realized the gravity of the situation. This stranger might not live another hour if they didn't act. If you believe in kindness and second chances, hit like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner, because what they did next is a story you won't forget. Nathan's mind raced. There was no one else around, no help in sight, only the soft rustling of autumn leaves and the distant hum of morning traffic. He crouched closer, examining the man's injuries. Cuts, bruises, and a deep wound on his side told a story of violence, neglect, or perhaps desperation. Nathan didn't hesitate. He lifted the man gently, his muscles straining under the weight, and carried him toward his car, Marin carefully following, her small legs pounding against the sidewalk. The man murmured something unintelligible, his voice ragged and weak, and Nathan felt a surge of protectiveness he hadn't realized he still carried. The stranger was a puzzle, a life hanging by a thread, and in that moment, Nathan and Marin became the difference between life and death. Once inside the car, Nathan called 911. His hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. Marin knelt beside the stranger, softly wiping the dirt from his face with the sleeve, her eyes wide with compassion. "He's alive," she whispered, as if declaring it could will him to survive. Nathan glanced at her, feeling a wave of pride and heartbreak all at once. He had raised a girl with a heart far larger than most adults he knew, and now that heart was shining in the dim morning light. As the ambulance sirens wailed closer, Nathan stayed by the man's side, holding his hand, speaking words he didn't know were prayers. Every second felt like a lifetime, and every breath they coaxed from him felt like a victory. The hospital was a blur of antiseptic smells and bright lights, a whirlwind of nurses and doctors taking over with precise urgency. Nathan and Marin were left in the waiting area, their hands still intertwined. The minutes stretched on, heavy with uncertainty. Nathan's mind replayed the morning over and over, wondering who this man was, what life had led him to the tracks, and why fate had placed him in front of them. Marin leaned her head against his shoulder, her soft presence grounding him in a storm of fear and hope. They had no answers yet, only the knowledge that their small act of courage had given another soul a fighting chance. Hours later, a doctor emerged, wiping his hands on a fresh pair of scrubs. "He's stable," the man said, relief softening the stern lines of his face. "He's lucky whoever found him acted quickly. He might not have made it without that intervention." Nathan's chest heaved with relief, and Marin let out a small, joyful laugh, her eyes sparkling through tears. Nathan felt a deep, unspoken connection with the stranger. This man, unknown and weary, had become part of their lives in ways words could not fully capture. They had made a difference when it mattered most, and that truth settled over them like sunlight after a storm. Over the next few days, Nathan and Marin visited the stranger and the hospital, learning his Namia Gideon Barkia and fragments of his story. Gideon had been homeless, battling addiction and haunted by mistakes that had isolated him from everyone he had once loved. Yet, beneath the dirt and scars, Nathan saw a flicker of something familiar: resilience, pain, and the yearning to live differently. Marin, in her innocent way, offered him drawings and snacks, little gestures that made Gideon smile in ways he hadn't in years. Nathan spoke to him about work, about hope, about the possibility of starting over. They didn't judge him for his past, and in return, Gideon began to shed layers of fear, replacing them with trust, gratitude, and a fragile, budding hope. The story of Nathan, Marin, and Gideon began to ripple through Willow Creek, quietly at first. Neighbors whispered about the single father and his daughter who had rescued a stranger without hesitation. Local news picked up the story. Father and daughter save life of homeless man. Donations and volunteers came forward, offering Gideon support, a place to stay, even job opportunities. Nathan realized then that what started as a desperate act of compassion had become a beacon, showing how simple choices can change lives, and not just one life, but a whole community's perception of kindness. Maren watched all of this unfold with wide-eyed wonder, her small heart swelling with the certainty that goodness mattered, and that even the smallest hands could leave a mark on the world. Weeks passed, and Gideon's health improved, as did his spirit. He took small jobs, attended counseling sessions, and slowly began to rebuild the life he had long thought impossible. Nathan and Maren remained by his side, a reminder that second chances are real and attainable. Gideon often said he would never forget the father and daughter who gave him more than just medical aid. They gave him dignity, hope, and the courage to fight for a future he had nearly abandoned. Nathan looked at Maren one evening, watching her tuck Gideon into bed like a child, and felt a warmth that transcended words. He realized the true miracle wasn't just saving a life, it was seeing humanity reflected in its purest form through the eyes of the people you love. As the morning sun spilled into their apartment once again, Nathan and Maren stood by the window, reflecting on how one ordinary day had become extraordinary. Gideon was now a symbol, a living testament to the power of compassion, the ripple effect of simple, selfless acts. Nathan turned to Maren, her hair catching the sunlight, and smiled. They had faced fear, uncertainty, and the fragility of life itself, and emerged not just unbroken, but transformed. Their hearts had grown in ways they couldn't have imagined, and their lives had intertwined with another in a story that would be told for years. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner, because kindness can change everything, and every life is worth a chance. Before we end, let's take a moment to honor all the unsung heroes, the ordinary people who make extraordinary choices every day, often without recognition. Nathan, Maren, and Gideon remind us that hope exists, even in the most unexpected places, and that love, empathy, and courage are timeless forces that can illuminate even the darkest mornings.